Welcome back. I'm Kimali. He's Jamie Wadley, and this is Inside Exec. This week we're going to delve a little bit into AI, artificial intelligence. I'm going to talk briefly about what I've been using it for, and we'll see what Jamie's been using it for and whether he thinks I'm doing the right things or not. I know that he uses it far more effectively, efficiently, and universally than I do. Then here's my uptake, and we're lucky that Funyala isn't with us, because it was actually her that, of all things, it was Funyala that suggested AI many months, years ago now. She would be horrified to think that I haven't taken it up as quickly as she would have expected me to. But I will say that it has been a struggle for me. I'm not one to take on technology unless I understand it, so that there was always that in the back of my mind. But what I've been using it for is not for writing emails. It's essentially as an assistant for me. So I work predominantly on my own. I am a great list writer, as you all know. That gives me some structure, but it also reminds me that I can't do everything. I can't get to everything. Some things take longer. Some things I don't know where to start. So what I have found, if I talk first of all about the floral art online activities that I do, I have a membership site, and once a month the members submit designs and they are assessed. And now initially I was having human judges assess them, and gradually, increasingly, I've started to use AI to analyse the designs and to give feedback. Now, the instruction that I give AI is the important part. It's the bit that directs what it's going to do. And so for that, I will just say, analyse this design on the basis of the principles and elements of design, which is how we are judged by human judges, and then give me some feedback and give me some suggestions for improvement. From that, I've been making videos, and I don't look at the results from AI until I start to do the video. So sometimes there's surprises in there for me. Sometimes there's things that I don't agree with, and I will say in the videos that I don't agree with them. So I think that brings us back to the basis of using it as a resource. It's just like having an assistant. So sometimes an assistant will come to you and suggest a whole lot of things that should be done around a process or a project that might sit well with you, but you might have other information that means that those things can't be done. So it is essentially not a replacement for someone. It is an added resource that you can utilise that is far faster in its reaction time and providing information than a human might be. And in some cases, that's going to be important to you, and in other cases, you might not need to use it that way. One of our previous guests on the podcast, I know, is using it in her work environment to free up some of the people that she has working for her so that they can spend less time on the administrative tasks, on the repetitive tasks, and more time face-to-face with their clientele. And that's another way of utilising it as an extra resource that comes at a much less cost than a human resource would be, and doesn't come with all of the associated choices of, is this the right person, will they fit into the team, all those sorts of things. That said, these days there are choices you can make about which AI you use. And you will also find, I think, as I do now, even with Zoom, that AI is offered as part of the offering of some product. Yesterday, I went to Airtable and I needed to make a new table, and inadvertently I clicked create the table using their inbuilt AI. And so suddenly there was this table and it was populated with all these fields that I had no idea where it got the information from, other than it had looked at previous tables that I had put together and thought, well, these tables seem to be ones that were used in the previous table, so we'll start with it there. Now, I didn't use all of it, but I was surprised at how well it assessed the information that was already there to give me this framework to start with. It's probably enough talking for me to start with. We're going to see what James got to say about how he's been using it and whether I should be using it better than I am now.
Thank you, Kim. It's such a broad topic these days. And unfortunately, it's only two letters that we use to describe it. But those two letters are becoming part of everything we do these days, whether we use it directly or, as Kim just spoke about, then we use it in other tools we use, things like Airtable and 1,000 other different software packages that we use every day. AI is being included to make what we do simpler and possibly more powerful. I think the AI that we're talking about today is essentially the chatbot and what you'd have sitting on your computer desktop to act as an assistant for you in many ways. And as Kim said, there are lots of versions of this type of software around that you can use. I use ChatGPT by OpenAI, and I must admit I'm a bit of a fanboy for the OpenAI stuff because I find it incredibly powerful. It is at the stage now, as we record in October 2025, it is touted as being at PhD level of knowledge and possibly intelligence, depending on how you define intelligence. The thing with it is, though, it is like a small child that's incredibly bright. For instance, if I prompt ChatGPT with a very short request, it might be find me some information on a particular subject I'm working with at that time. It will do that, but without being specific. You give it its head, if you like, to go and make up what it thinks you want. And unfortunately, it still doesn't read our minds. So often you'll get things in the form of a hallucination, which is a nice way of saying stuff that's incorrect in the AI parlance. But the more specific you can be with your instructions to the AI you use, the better the results you'll get out the other end. And that boils down to something that could be quite formulaic. And once you develop prompts that you may use on a regular basis, you can reuse those and tweak them as needed to get the results you want. One thing Kim and I talk about with using AI is tell it a role that you want it to take on before you tell it the request you want. You might be doing some creative writing and you could tell the AI take on the persona or take on the role of an expert copywriter or an expert creative writer. And that tells it the sort of benchmark you want it to work from. And from there, you can specify a context of what you're trying to do. You can be specific of the sort of outputs you want to receive from the AI. And if you do it in that structured way, you'll find you'll get a much better result out of using the AI chatbot or indeed any AI than you would by leaving it up to its own choices. So we really need to instruct it along the way. As I said, it's incredibly clever, but it is a very small child. So you'd have to lead it by the hand, essentially, to get the best result out of it.
Two questions out of that. We see it now when we use Google search or other search engines. We see that AI results come up first from what used to be the treasured spot of the information box is now an AI result. So should we, if we're searching and the AI results come up as the first option in the search results, should we be looking at that, or should we be looking at the other things that are coming up, the websites and those sorts of things that are coming up as well?
I think in terms of the search, the AI text that's generated is essentially giving you a summary of what it's found out in maybe the top 10, 20, 100 things that have come up in the search. So it's probably not a bad idea to use it that way. I must admit, since I've started using ChatGPT on essentially a daily basis, I very rarely search for anything anymore. And if I do search for anything, I often find now I go to another AI called Perplexity, which is a variation on a search engine. It calls itself an answer engine. And it's based around a large language model, as are all the AIs we use, but it's more geared around giving you a summary of search results and combining that into one specific answer to try to answer your question. One of the benefits it has, it does cite the sources, so you can go in and look at what it's looked at to find out that information. So they're probably the two major AI entities I use, and there are others, of course. There's Claude, which is very good for doing coding if you're that way inclined. ChatGPT is a bit of an all-rounder, but once again, very powerful as a coding engine, very good at creative writing, and very good at research as well. If you haven't used it before, I'd probably recommend trying a few of the more popular ones that are out there and see which one suits you the best. And they all usually have a free tier to start from. And if you find you're running into to limit blocks of using that, you can decide yourself if you want to spend the $30, $35 Australian to get to tier one to give yourself a lot more power than you would otherwise have. But yeah, I think the day of the search as we know it and Googling something has drawn to a close, and there are better ways now that will save you time, most definitely.
The other question that came out of that is one from my own experiences about I like to be polite to it and, please and thank you in the questions. In the responses, it is generally encouraging until I get to a point where I am frustrated with the answers that I'm getting that are not giving me the help that I need, and I will be a bit short with it. When you've got someone who's encouraging, an entity who is encouraging and positive and reassuring in the answers, and always at the end of it offers the next thing to do, how do you steel yourself to be not interacting with it as though you were interacting with a person?
That's a tough question for me to answer because I do interact with it as though it's a person, and I do treat it with the same courtesy as I would offer a colleague or an assistant I was working with. And I've heard Sam Altman of OpenAI Origin, if I can say that, is quick to tell you that the politeness that we use as users of ChatGPT costs them tens of millions of dollars every week with the extra work the AI has to go through to answer in a kind sort of fashion in return. But I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think there is research and results out there that actually say you'll get a better result if you treat it that way. But in the same token, if I'm doing something that is perhaps a new idea I'm trying to formulate, I will tell the AI not to be as polite as it would normally be and be specific and give me some tough love, if I can put it that way, if the idea doesn't have merit. Because I don't need someone to pat me on the head and say, your terrible idea is great. What I need is someone who is going to say to me, I see what you're saying. I can't see there's any value in that, or there might be more value in doing it a different way. So it's not a question of being polite or impolite. It's a question of tasking the OpenAI or the AI entity to be what you need it to be. Once again, it's a role that you give it. So if you need to have it act as a teacher, have it be a teacher with some courtesy. If you need it to be a boss that's going to tell you what you have to do, well, maybe you should task it that way. And if you want it to be friendly and give you some advice, well, maybe you treat it that way to start with and give it that role once again. A lot of people will tell you that we are just dealing with software, even though it is incredibly clever. I think personally that there's something more to it than that. And as for being courteous to it or getting upset with it, perhaps the day will come where we're answering to AI in one form or another. So it might pay to be courteous now.
No different really in a human resources sense to being professional. So it's about maintaining professionalism in your interaction with it, regardless. And that's what you would do with an office situation or a project situation, is that you're going to say to someone, I don't want you to just be the yes person. I need an answer on this. You're the resource in this area. Tell me straight whether it's going to work or not. So I think that that's probably an important point for us to get across, is that it is just another professional resource that you are using. And so you treat it the way you would treat any other professional resource.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. It is technology, as PCs and Windows and computers were in their day, and it was good to have someone around who knew how to make the magic box work in as optimal a fashion as possible. But the artificial intelligence we have access to now is really the stuff of science fiction. It really is that powerful. And a lot of people are concerned that it will take jobs. I'm sure it will. There will be some jobs that will no longer be needed because of the capacities and the expertise AI will develop as time goes by, and that it has already. But there's still a lot of room for humans in the loop to make sure everything is as it should. So it's definitely at this point an assistant. And if you're looking at it to help you with project or processes in your organisation, you definitely can't just sign over to it immediately without having some sort of human oversight to keep an eye on it. And you have to bear in mind that if you are using, if I can use the term, a retail version of an AI like ChatGPT, all the information we put in there becomes part of its training data. So you really don't want to share too much privileged information, certainly no private information. And if you do need to do that, that's getting to the stage where you need to have an in-house AI running for you. But that's a conversation for a whole different topic than we're speaking now. But you have to be wary of what you share with it. It does remember. And not to say that that will be spread, hither and yon with people looking for information about you, but someone might ask a similar question or something along the same lines as you've talked to the AI about, and it might well find what you spoke about is relevant to the answer it should give, and it'll use that information in that way. So just be mindful of that particular facet of how the software does work.
Once again, it relates back to the human interface in a work environment, is that you wouldn't talk about your business or your projects willy-nilly to anyone. You would be careful about what information you were giving. And we have a commercial in confidence agreements that a lot of people sign when they start work. So there's a degree of filtering of information that can still give you an answer, still give you can find resources for in a project or in an activity.
We're going to take a break now in this discussion about how you can best utilise AI, particularly if you're new to incorporating it into your daily activities. I'm Kim Bailey, he's Jamie Wadley, this is Inside Exec.